You won't believe what happened. Student reveals amazing talent that left teacher in shock. Sam's heart raced as he stepped into the dim choir room, filled with the remnants of faded memories and peeling paint. He had joined the choir on a whim, half hoping for an escape from the relentless pressure of grades and family expectations. But as he stood there, surrounded by classmates who knew him only as the kid from the working class, a tense anxiety gripped him. Would they see him as a joke? A failure? Pressure boiled in his chest like an invisible weight. What if he disappointed his parents, especially his mother, who had sacrificed so much for dreams she had given up long ago? His mother's silence suffocated him, it echoed her unfulfilled aspirations, haunting him with every note they practiced. He could almost hear her fingers dancing over the keys, all the dreams lost in the deep creases of her hands, which had once brought forth beautiful melodies but were now just reminders of what could be been. As Mr. Jenkins began his exercises, Sam's mind raced with self-doubt. He was just a mechanic's son. Could he possibly rise above that label? Let us hear those voices. Mr. Jenkins called out, breaking Sam from his reverie. The room was charged with eagerness and skepticism. Sam's stomach twisted, he wanted to shrink into his chair rather than stand out. The group activity commenced, and he felt the eyes of Jack, the popular jock, landing on him like a predator assessing its prey. What's next? A solo from the freak? Jack's mocking tone rang in his ears, making Sam's palms sweaty. But with each measure, an unexpected force pushed him forward. Before he knew it, he was singing. His voice burst from him, powerful and raw, catching everyone including Mr. Jenkins off guard. The room fell silent, breaths held tight. For a brief moment, the disbelieving gazes shifted. But the applause felt like a double-edged sword. What was once anonymity started to slip away, and with it, the fear of being ridiculed grew heavier. The weight of potential had never felt so heavy. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, yet, the thrill of the moment quickly soured as whispers began to swirl through the room like a mist of doubt, voices questioning his background, his right to shine. Could he be more than just Sam the mechanic's kid? The haunting thought lingered, if he failed, would he disappoint the one person whose opinions mattered most, his mother? Every note he sang now felt tainted, an echo of his own fears of belonging, of acceptance, and the terrifying prospect of transformation. As the regional competition loomed closer, his thoughts became a storm. He could hear the dismissive laughter ringing in his ears, he could feel the weight of Jack's stare like a sentencing. What if this journey of newfound passion turned into a trap, sending him spiraling away from the love of his family? Sam stood on the precipice of self-discovery, feeling every ounce of hope and fear collide within him. The question haunted him, could he find a way to embrace this chance without losing everything he held dear? At that moment, silence fell heavy around him, the impending performance looming over him like a dark cloud. Sam's mind raced as he left the choir room, the echoes of applause and whispered uncertainties swirling around him like a whirlwind. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the schoolyard as he walked to his usual spot, a bench tucked away between the trees. He lowered himself onto the splintered wood, his fingers gripping the edges tightly. The anticipation of the regional competition loomed like an approaching storm that he took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp fall air, hoping it would clear the haze of anxiety clouding his thoughts. The thrill of having really sung was overshadowed by the nagging voice questioning his worth. Had he truly earned the applause, or had he just given everyone a moment to laugh? In the solitude of the bench, feelings surged within him, a mix of fear and an undeniable yearning for acceptance. What if I fail? The thought curled in his stomach like a serpent, its grip tightening. Each time he pictured the stage, he imagined what it felt like to fail, to hear the laughter. Jack's taunts echoed back to him, leaving the taste of bitter doubt on his tongue. What if they were right? But deeper still was a flicker of defiance, a yearning to rewrite the narrative he had lived for so long. Beneath the weight of his fears, Sam wrestled with the question, what if he succeeded? What if he stepped onto that stage and found himself, something beyond the label of the mechanic's kid? The softness of the twilight wrapped around him, cradling this tiny spark of hope. As the buzz of students filled the air, Sam took out his phone and opened a voice memo app. What had once been a tool for mirroring songs from the radio now became a medium for exploration. He hesitated for a moment but pressed record. As his voice filled the quiet space, he began to experiment with different notes, weaving emotions he had never dared to express into the melody. This was his private rehearsal, his space to evolve without the weight of judgment or expectations. Listening to his own voice flow through the recording felt liberating. Each note he struck took on new meaning, an emergent identity unshackled by self-doubt. He closed his eyes, letting the music nurture his spirit. Lines of tension in his brow gradually smoothed out, replaced by a dawning clarity. Sam could see a future where music intertwined with who he was, without the clamor of disbelief. The next day, Mr. Jenkins caught him after practice. "Sam," he said, his green eyes sharp yet warm. "I can see you fighting against something. You have a gift, something rare. But progress requires not just talent, it needs you to be honest with yourself." Sam gulped, the sincerity of Mr. Jenkins's words hitting deep. The realization struck him, he was the one holding himself back. Pressures from his family, expectations, and social labels had tainted his journey. He had to decide, could he share his voice without letting others define his existence? The upcoming competition was no longer just a showcase, it was a chance to confront the self-imposed chains that had bound him. As Sam faced this new perspective, the air around him crackled with determination. "I won't let them dictate my future," he vowed silently. Yet even as he embraced this new mindset, doubts lingered like shadows in the corners of his mind. The clarity of his direction felt daunting. The stage would demand more from him than he had ever given before: courage, vulnerability, and a fierce commitment to his newfound self. As the date of the competition drew nearer, each practice felt like a tightening noose, a test of resilience. Sam understood now that his battle was not just against external judgment but against the fragmented pieces of his own identity. The moment loomed closer, one that could either shatter or liberate him. Would he be ready to confront the obstacles inside and out? He looked ahead to the growing distance between him and the stage, realizing that it wasn't just the performance awaiting him, but a confrontation with himself that would define who he truly was to become. As the days slipped by, Sam felt the weight of anticipation clinging to him like a shroud. Each morning began with a swirl of determination, but as the sun dipped below the horizon, shadows of doubt crept back, filling his mind with conflicting thoughts. Despite the fleeting moments of clarity, when he truly believed in his potential, the suffocating cloud of fear remained ever present. He underscored his daily practices with a new strategy, viewing them as dialogues with himself rather than merely rehearsals. The voice memo app became both a tool and a mirror, capturing with brutal honesty the evolution of his sound and, in turn, the evolution of his identity. Listening back, he could hear the transformations, each note infused with a newfound depth as he explored the emotional layers hidden beneath his self-imposed constraints. One rainy afternoon, after what felt like an endless cycle of sessions, Sam collapsed back onto his bench under the canopy of the trees. The familiar splintered wood greeted him with comfort, but the rain had washed away the easy acceptance of yesterday. He recorded another session, but this time, a deeper abyss of frustration laced the air. During his run-through, the notes wavered, trembling under the pressure of his anxiety. They turned discordant and jarring, as if mocking him. Had he regressed? "Why can't I just be good enough?" he muttered, thrashing against his insecurities. Anger burned in his throat, igniting tears that threatened to spill over. Why was he so fearful of judgment when he wanted nothing more than to be understood? Music should be liberating, yet it felt like a chokehold. He shifted his focus towards the competition again, realizing that it wasn't just the applause he longed for, it was acceptance of himself. He had let the taunts of others carve deep grooves into his psyche, living up to the expectations born out of fear. Yet those moments spent recording highlighted the power he could harness. With each playback, he noticed how he had, in fact, grown, but only if he was willing to embrace the discomfort of vulnerability. The next day, determination sparked anew. Instead of simply executing the notes, he began to infuse them with the rawness of his emotions, the fears of inadequacy, the longing for acceptance, the joy in creation. He gave himself permission to stumble, to break apart, and reassemble each phrase anew. While each practice session became more demanding, a flicker of hope hung in the air, transforming defeat into a powerful silence pregnant with possibility. Demar Jenkins approached him again as he exited practice, a knowing smile on his face. "I heard you finding your voice today, Sam. It was genuine. Like you were really telling a story." The gravity of those words sent a shiver down Sam's spine, igniting a recognition he had desperately sought after. Was it that simple? Could authenticity truly shine in the midst of vulnerability? "Thank you," Sam replied, a sense of newfound clarity igniting within him. The importance of conveying emotion struck him deeper than ever before. It was time to peel away the layers of fear and embrace an unfiltered narrative for others to witness, a narrative of growth, courage, and undeniable strength. As the competition date finally loomed ahead, each day became a careful calibration of preparation and introspection. He began to visualize stepping onto the stage not merely to perform but to engage in a transcendental act of storytelling that was uniquely his own. No longer just a performance, but a personal awakening. But right before the day arrived, a last-minute challenge confronted him. Jack would be attending, and his presence sent trepidation racing through Sam. How would he maintain this newfound confidence under the weight of past judgments? Or would the echo of his doubts drown out the melody of his growth? He realized this competition would not be merely a test of talent, it would be a clash with his past, a battle against the shame tethered to his identity. Sam breathed in deep, embracing the complexities of coming face to face with his fears and emerging not just as a performer, but as a confident individual ready to redefine himself. The stakes had never felt higher, the moment to determine who he truly was approached with frightening rapidity. Would he seize it, or let it slip through his fingers yet again? The morning light poured through Sam's window, illuminating the remnants of his restless night. Thoughts of Jack haunted him as he struggled to shake off the impending sense of doom. Each tick of the clock seemed to mock him, a countdown to the inevitable confrontation. What if he failed? What if he fell short once more? Yet, with the dawn breaking, a flicker of resolve propelled him forward. Today wasn't only about the competition, it was a pivotal moment to stand and confront the very insecurities he'd tried to bury for years. Each breath felt heavy as he prepared, the weight of his past pushing against the resolve he sought to build. Sam paused, gazing into the mirror. It was just him staring back, yet a tapestry of voices echoed in his mind, supportive whispers mingling with taunting jeers. In this moment, he chose to listen to the former. "I will own this," he declared aloud, grounding himself in the affirmation. His fingers found their way to his instrument, resting there like an extension of his spirit. With practiced ease, he began to play, and the initial notes enveloped him in a cocoon of tranquility amidst the chaos. Each shift in his melody reflected the jagged lines of his journey, a narrating of self-discovery that no one but he truly understood. Time slipped away as he practiced, the outside world fading into a blur. The darkness of doubt that once wielded power over him began to dissipate, replaced with a sense of purpose. What Mr. Jenkins hadn't disclosed was the essence of storytelling in music came not just from technical skill but from the genuine ownership of one's experiences. Sam felt the strength in his vulnerability, wrestling with it became an integral part of his art. As he finished his final run-through, adrenaline surged through him. While he knew the enormity of what lay ahead, fleeting thoughts of Jack's judgment barely scratched the surface of his veiled excitement. This was his moment to reveal the tapestry of his struggle, a performance laden with the raw depths of his soul. No more hiding in the shadows of others. With his heart racing, he stepped outside, the cool air brushing against his skin, a refreshing contrast to the suffocating self-doubt he had carried. Sam breathed deep, grounding himself for what was to come and picturing the audience's faces, their ears open to receive the messages threaded in his music. He spotted Jack seated in the front row, sipping a drink, surrounded by a group of eager friends. The sight burrowed under his skin, a weight pressing on his chest, but he refused to let it anchor him. Instead, anger ignited within him, anger for every moment filled with insecurity, the scornful laughter, the push to be someone he was not. Would he allow those memories to dictate his reality? No. This was about reclaiming his narrative, one where he was not defined by someone else's opinions. In that realization, a wave of empowerment washed over him. Sam could feel it, he was a storyteller, and his tale would be one of resilience. The stage loomed ahead, the vibrant lights beckoning him. As he waited in the wings, adrenaline surged, a cocktail of fear and excitement. He sensed a shift in the atmosphere, palpable like electricity. He turned to catch a glimpse of Mr. Jenkins, who offered a reassuring nod, as if to say, "You know what to do." And as the host called for him, Sam stepped into the spotlight, heart pounding. He was no longer a young man surface-bound by fear but an artist fueled by authenticity. With one deep breath, he prepared to channel the essence of everything he had practiced: his voice, his truth, his story. Would he rise above the echoes of judgment, or would the ghosts of his past find their way back into the music? The time had come to unravel the true melody of his identity. The moment his fingers danced across the strings, Sam felt the apprehension dissolve into the ether. The first notes washed over the audience, each one immersed in an ocean of emotion, swirling memories, aspirations, and the beating heart of his journey. He was no longer just performing, he was unveiling the layers of his identity thread by thread, revealing a quilt of experience steeped in struggle and desire. With each chord, the weight of Jack's presence receded, overtaken by the intoxicating freedom of self-expression. The spotlight was more than bright, it was a revelation that illuminated his truth. As he played, Sam felt as if something deep within him began to resonate. He caught the gaze of a few audience members, their expressions reflecting genuine engagement, and for a moment, doubt threatened to bubble up again. But instead, he steered his focus back to the music, channeling his vulnerabilities into something beautiful, the melody twisted, ebbing and flowing like the narratives that shaped him. Here was his father's disapproval, the sting of rejection from peers, the relentless comparison to better, brighter talents. It was all there in the haunting refrains and jubilant crescendos. Sam could hear the very essence of those emotions being woven into the fabric of the performance, and he surrendered to that process. It was cathartic, a purging of past grievances that had held him captive for too long. As the song approached its climax, he caught sight of Mr. Jenkins, eyes wide with disbelief and admiration. The old teacher leaned back, clearly moved. It was a beacon of validation, a subtle challenge to continue forging ahead. Sam felt his confidence swell, he was not just a pawn in someone else's game. He was the player, the artist, and this was his narrative to craft. Lost in his rhythm, Sam drew closer to the vulnerable truth he had previously kept at bay. Would, or could, this performance serve as a turning point? Beyond the applause and fleeting moments of glory, this was about building a foundation of self-respect that had been decades in the making. He realized that each note resonated with the strength he never embraced. With the final flourish, he poured every ounce of his spirit into the last chord, stretching it out so that it echoed in the quiet spaces left behind. When the sound faded, the auditorium sat in silence, a collective breath held in awe before erupting into ecstatic applause. A surge of warmth enveloped him, and he knew he had achieved something significant, something people would remember. As he took a bow, Sam's eyes sought out Jack, wanting to make a connection, to witness the reaction of the one person whose judgment had loomed largest in his life. The crowd's cheers swirled around him, but all he felt was an undercurrent of anxiety pulling him back. Jack's expression was unreadable, and Sam's heart raced as he battled the lingering fear of rejection. That he turned away, the applause welcoming yet disorienting, swirling in his ears as he exited the stage. It was exhilarating but frightening to confront not only the audience but his own reflection. Would he continue on this path of self-discovery, or was it merely a fleeting moment of clarity amidst the chaos of doubt? Stepping backstage, Sam's mind raced. What had he just accomplished? It was both a victory and a reminder that his journey was far from over. The energy in his veins danced with possibility, but the weight of Jack's presence still loomed in the background, ready to threaten his newfound sense of self. As he leaned against the wall, breathless yet invigorated, he realized the importance of not just the performance but the conversations that would follow. Sam had revealed his story, but was he ready to confront the next chapter of it with Jack? An unsettling anticipation twisted in his stomach as a familiar voice called out from the crowd. "Hey, Sam! That was incredible. We need to talk." The words lingered in the air, a declaration of both potential and uncertainty. How much of the wall he had built would he be able to dismantle? Sam felt the stirring of a deeper conversation, and he knew that what lay ahead could unveil even more than he could imagine. Would he be brave enough to face the fallout of his performance, and what challenges would arise from this unexpected wave of recognition? With a deep breath, he stepped further into the bustle of voices beyond the stage, ready to confront what came next. Sam leaned against the cool wall in the dimly lit backstage area, his heart pounding in his chest as the echo of applause reverberated through the auditorium. The vibrant energy of the performance lingered, yet an underlying current of anxiety twisted through him. He felt more exposed than ever before. The music had been his voice, but what happened next could shape the narrative of his journey in ways he hadn't anticipated. "Sam! Over here!" The voice was unmistakable. Jack, standing a few feet away, his demeanor a mix of awe and disbelief, beckoned him. Sam hesitated, the remnants of exhilaration colliding with a tidal wave of dread. Was this the moment he had sought all along, the chance to articulate his worth? Or was it merely the prelude to more disappointment? With each step he took, his mind churned. What would Jack say? Would he acknowledge the depth of what he just witnessed, or would it morph back into that familiar stance of criticism? Sam had built his self-worth around Jack's approval for too long, but the recent performance had sparked something within him. It was time for clarity, no matter how painful that conversation might become. "Hey, wow," Jack said, genuine admiration seeping through his voice. "I was blown away. That was not just a performance, that was, well, it felt like you were laying your soul bare." His words, surprisingly warm, hit Sam like a wave crashing ashore. Was this the validation he had always craved? "Thanks," Sam replied, the word barely escaping his lips as he patiently awaited more. He was tired of small talk and clichés. Today, he needed depth. Jack shifted, his eyes darting around as if seeking the right words. "You've come a long way since you first started playing. I never imagined you had that much inside you." "And yet I did," Sam countered, emboldened by his recent experience. "But maybe it's not about what I have inside, maybe it's about letting it out, letting it be seen." Jack nodded, visibly grappling with Sam's implied challenge. "So, what's next for you?" His question hung in the air, weighted by the nuance of the moment. Sam felt at the tipping point. This wasn't just a conversation, it was an opportunity to redefine their relationship, establish boundaries, and reclaim his narrative. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice steady yet cautiously optimistic. "But I know I have to explore what I can do with this," he said, gesturing toward his guitar lying on the floor beside them. "That performance was just the beginning. I don't want it to be a one-time thing. I want to dive deeper into this." Jack's brows furrowed, an indication he was processing something monumental. "You weren't just playing music earlier, you were speaking your truth." Sam could see the flicker of realization crossing Jack's face, triggering an uncharted territory between them. "That's powerful." But his voice trailed off, the concern returning to his features. "But?" Sam pressed, a mixture of curiosity and impatience urging him forward. "What about the naysayers? What about the doubts that will inevitably come creeping back?" Jack looked serious, and Sam felt an unsettling recognition. Jack was worried, perhaps more for himself than for Sam. "I think the doubts are a part of the journey," Sam replied, staring directly into Jack's eyes. "But I'm ready to confront them. Ready to dismantle everything that has held me back. Jack took a step back, absorbing the weight of Sam's words. A flicker of respect crossed his face, quickly replaced by something else: uncertainty. This is monumental. Just don't forget how isolating a path like this can be. It's not always sunshine and rainbows. Sam almost laughed, but repressed the impulse, aware this was Jack's way of demonstrating care. Neither is living in someone else's shadow, he countered, aware of his growing assertiveness. The silence that fell between them was charged. What had started as a conversation of admiration was morphing into a confrontation of expectations, aspirations, and the stark reality of existence. As they stood there, negotiating uncharted territory within their dynamic, Sam knew he was at a crossroads. Something fundamental had shifted within him on that stage, and this moment was a reflection of that transformation. This was not just about confronting Jack's opinions, it was about embracing his own. "Sam, promise me you won't lose yourself in this," Jack finally said, the concern palpable in his tone. "I promise to explore who I can become instead of who you think I should be," Sam responded, resolute. They stared at each other, the air thick with unresolved tension, as both understood this conversation heralded change. As Sam stepped back and turned to leave, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in a nearby mirror. For the first time, he saw not just the artist, but a brave soul ready to forge ahead. But his mind was racing, stewing with questions. If this was a step toward reclaiming his identity, what would happen next? What reactions awaited him outside this sacred circle of honesty? With those thoughts swirling, a familiar voice echoed from the auditorium, calling out once more for him. Was this his moment to embrace whatever labyrinth awaited him beyond? Resolved, he pushed against the surge of uncertainty, determined to find out. As Sam stepped back onto the stage, the applause had not fully faded. The air was heavy with anticipation, as if the audience sensed the evolution of their performer beneath the spotlight. He could feel the warmth of their gaze, a contrast to the chill of doubt that lingered just beneath the surface. Each breath brought a mix of exhilaration and trepidation, a primal cocktail of emotion pushing him toward uncharted ambitions. "Sam, you're amazing. Can I get a selfie with you?" A voice blurted from the front row, a face illuminated by the soft glow of a phone's camera. The demand shattered his momentary reverie but also reminded him of the impact he had just made. "Sure," he replied, a smile breaking through his nerves as he posed. This connection, fleeting as it was, felt more genuine than superficial. With every shout of encouragement, he felt fragments of his previous self melt away, reshaped into something braver and more authentic. It was exhilarating to be seen, even for a moment, but the instant gratitude faded quickly as doubts escaped their hidden corners. What if he wasn't enough? What if this was just a fleeting moment of brilliance, destined to fade away like whispers on the wind? Sam squared his shoulders, shaking off the worries. No more looking for validation outside of himself. He wouldn't let those thoughts back him into a corner again. That he stepped down from the stage, the adrenaline still coursing through him. As he walked into the bright hallway, he spotted Claire, a fellow musician and friend. Her wide eyes sparkled with an energy he recognized all too well. "Sam! You freaking crushed it! I could feel the emotion," she exclaimed, bouncing on her toes as she approached him. "Thanks, Claire." It felt real, he admitted, searching for the right words to convey the paradigm shift he had just experienced. It wasn't merely about hitting notes or strumming chords, it was about connection through authenticity. "You should think about showcasing your sound more. Let people hear what's inside you," she continued, her voice charged with encouragement. Sam's heart fluttered at the thought, but something tugged at him. "I know I need to embrace this, but it's so daunting. What if people don't like it? What if I fail?" She shrugged, unbothered by the weight of what felt insurmountable to him. "Then you fail. But at least you'll have tried, right? Isn't that better than always wondering what if?" Her directness struck a chord. Each moment spent in self-doubt had cost him precious time in discovering who he wanted to be. But what would it take to push past those fears? In the ensuing moments of conversation, Sam began to formulate a plan. He could organize an open mic night, open the stage to anyone, and share his story as well. It would not just be his music, it could invite others to step into their authenticity too. Maybe he could bring others along on this journey of exploration. "Let us do an open mic night," he blurted out, startling both Claire and himself with his boldness. "I want to create a space where people can express themselves. Where we can all be seen." Claire's expression turned serious, a mixture of surprise and concern washing over her face. "That's ambitious, Sam. You sure you're ready for that kind of spotlight? What if it flops?" "No," he replied firmly, the determination now flooding him. "I'm not going back to living in fear. Worst case scenario, I learn and grow. But I have to try." Even as he voiced his intent, awareness flickered within him. The implications of this decision were vast, and the stakes felt high. Opening himself up like this risked vulnerability but also held extraordinary potential for growth. As they delved further into planning, Sam felt the tension melting away, replaced by an infectious excitement. They would meet the next day to brainstorm together, his vision and her enthusiasm merging into something more significant than either of them alone, yet behind the thrill lay a foreboding shadow. The naysayers. The doubts. They lingered in the corners of his mind, whispering about potential failures and repercussions. Would Jack be right about the isolation of this path? Would doubt rear its ugly head when he needed courage the most? Sam took a deep breath, grounding himself. For every external voice that questioned him, there would be an internal rallying cry demanding he forge ahead. The next chapter was unfolding, and he would shape it on his terms, but as he prepared to leave the venue, his phone buzzed with a notification. Reluctantly, he opened it, and his stomach dropped. The familiar photo of him performing, bathed in stage lights, was accompanied by a comment that felt like an icy dagger. "Nice try, but stick to your day job." With that, Sam clenched his fists, the initial excitement morphing into a simmering determination. If he was going to embark on this journey of authenticity, confront the naysayers, and put his vulnerability on display, this was only the beginning. What was he truly capable of? The question hung in the air, both daunting and invigorating, as he steadied himself to step into the unknown. But first, he'd have to face the shadows hanging over him, a confrontation with both self and the harsh realities that await in the light. As Sam stepped outside, the brisk evening air hit him like a splash of cold water, jolting him from the restless thoughts swirling in his mind. The comment on his phone echoed ominously, hanging heavy in his chest. "Nice try, but stick to your day job." He was conscious of the power of words, their ability to wound or elevate. Did he really want to invite more scrutiny into his life? With every step toward his car, he could feel his heart pounding with an unfamiliar rhythm, a mix of fear and exhilaration pulsing through his veins. Who was he to envision an open mic night, let alone lead it? A small, timid voice in his mind wanted to retreat back into familiar obscurity. But rising above it was a new awareness, the courage to confront that voice, the readiness to redefine his boundaries. Sitting in the driver's seat, he leaned back, his hands gripping the steering wheel. He envisioned Claire's excited reaction, the potential for creativity bursting forth like a spring flower after a harsh winter. But against that image, the dark comment felt like a looming storm cloud, threatening to eclipse his newfound optimism. A wave of determination surged within him again. He rummaged through the glove compartment for a scrap of paper and a pen. This was no time for second-guessing. As he jotted down ideas for the open mic night, his excitement reignited. What format would it have? A theme? He could feel the warmth of the connections he craved, a space vibrating with authenticity, where performers and audiences merged in shared stories and dreams. He wrote down overcoming fear as a possible theme. Perhaps it would resonate not just with him, but with others who harbored the same fears of rejection, of inadequacy. Decide to do it. The words burned in his mind as if challenging him to dismiss them. He began developing a strategy, outlining potential logistics. The venue could be the local coffee shop, small enough to feel intimate but big enough to accommodate a supportive crowd. But a nagging weight returned. What if nobody showed up? What if they did, but he failed to engage them? What if he bore his heart, and it was met with indifference? It was easier to cling to the comfort of that small, dim room in his day job, where he wouldn't have to expose his passions to the scrutiny of others. Yet, as he pushed through the doubt, another thought flickered in his mind, a chance to spark an authentic connection, both for him and those who dared to share their voices. Embers of hope ignited into flames. These were risks he had to take, not just for himself, but as a challenge to the surging tide of self-doubt threatening to overwhelm him. The next morning, Sam met Claire at a small cafe that smelled of coffee and baked goods. She greeted him with an effervescent smile, and they dove into planning. The rhythmic tapping of their pens against paper punctuated their excitement. As they discussed publicity options, timelines, and themes for the night, Sam couldn't shake the feeling of disbelief that this was really happening. He began to realize that vulnerability wasn't just about exposing himself to potential judgment, it was also about giving others the space to confront their fears and aspirations. The nature of what he was doing shifted in his mind. It wasn't merely about him sharing music, it was about inviting a collective experience of rebirth. However, a moment of silence fell between them as they discussed venue selections. The doubt crept back in uninvited, gnawing at Sam's optimism. "What if we fail?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The only failure would be not trying at all," Claire replied with conviction, her eyes steady and encouraging. Her words grasped the threads of his ambition, weaving them back into a tapestry of hope. Despite the internal struggle, he could feel resolve building within him. But just as quickly, another voice intruded on this moment of clarity. The shame from the comment loomed like a specter. What if he wasn't good enough to hold the space he so desperately wanted to create? Reserved yet determined, Sam gripped his pen tighter. He could imagine himself at the microphone, laying bare his heart to the crowd, and that thought electrified him. He took a deep breath, conjuring up a fierce mantra. "I am enough." As they finalized plans, excitement surged through Sam, although trepidation still clung to the edges. He was dependent on getting the word out, on the potential of reaching out for collaboration. He would need to face the same forces that had bred his self-doubt. Just then, Claire's phone buzzed, and she glanced at the screen, her face shifting to surprise. "You won't believe this," she exclaimed, as she showed him the latest social media buzz about the open mic night, drawing in skeptics and supporters alike. The hype and drama began spiraling beyond what they had expected, but could they sustain this momentum? The growing attention both thrilled and terrified Sam. One thing was clear: this was more than just an event, it had morphed into a testament of his journey. What awaited him in the days leading to that night weighed heavily, but there was no retreat. He was at the threshold of personal confrontation, entwined with the potent energy of change. As Sam glanced toward Claire, he sensed the urgency intensifying. The moment of truth approached. The question remained, would he truly rise to the occasion, or would the shadow of doubt once again weigh him down? The buzz from social media ignited a fire within Sam, even as clouds of uncertainty hovered nearby. He was painfully aware that hype, much like admiration, could be fleeting. He could feel the weight of expectations, both self-imposed and from those looking to him as a leader. It felt exhilarating and terrifying all at once. What if he could truly rise above the skepticism and redefine what success looked like for himself? In the days leading up to the night, Sam threw himself into preparations. His nights blurred into early mornings filled with planning sessions alongside Claire. They meticulously crafted a promotional strategy that encompassed local forums and social media posts, yet with each message sent, doubt slithered back in uninvited. What if it's just a flash in the pan? He grappled internally, trying to quell the whispers that reminded him of his capacity for failure. During one strategy brainstorm, he caught a glimpse of Claire's enthusiasm crossing into professional territory. She was relentless, her faith in him unwavering, which both invigorated and intimidated him. As they discussed potential performers, he reminded her they were all novices. "What if they're terrible? What if I am?" he vented. The room echoed with the faint sound of clinking cups, mirroring the clattering in his chest. "Sam, listen to me," Claire said, her tone sharpening. "They will be nervous too. That's the point, right? No one is expecting perfection. They are expecting authenticity, a chance to share and connect." For a fleeting moment, her words penetrated the fog of insecurity that clouded his vision, but soon after, lingering doubts clawed at him again. Was authenticity enough? Perhaps Claire was placing too much faith in a concept that seemed elusive, like grasping water with bare hands. He quickly buried the nagging thoughts. Focus on the message, he reminded himself, noting how many emotions intersected in their shared mission. As the week progressed, Sam slowly ventured into the realm of social media himself. He created a profile dedicated to the event, expressing his personal journey of overcoming fear and seeking connection. His fingers trembled over the keyboard, each keystroke a raw incision into the fabric of his self-doubt. With a deep breath, he posted, "Come join me on this adventure. Let us share our stories and overcome together." Surprisingly, the response was positive. People began commenting with their own stories and expressing interest in sharing their own voices. Yet, with each notification, the fear began to spiral. What if a crowd gathered and all he had to offer was insufficient? As the night approached, he could hardly sleep, pacing in his small apartment, glancing at his phone every few minutes for updates. He imagined standing under the bright lights of the cafe, microphone in hand, prone to judgment and vulnerability. Each scenario played out in excruciating detail, blurring the lines between excitement and dread. The day before the event, Claire brought over homemade cookies and a bottle of sparkling cider, hoping to lift the tension in the air. They laughed over shared stories from their childhoods, but that evening Sam was unable to shake the sensation that he was standing on the edge of a precipice. Once that microphone was in his hand, there would be no turning back. He could no longer hide, the world would see him, the good, the bad, and the broken pieces he still struggled to embrace. "Do you think this is going to change things for us?" he asked, surprising himself with the sudden weight of the question. Claire looked into his eyes, her expression softening. "Every time we face our fears, it changes us," she replied earnestly. "Even if it's just a little." As he sat in silence, weighing her words, it became evident to him that personal evolution does not hinge on the approval of others but rather on the willingness to seek authenticity within himself, regardless of the outcome. The doorbell rang, jolting him from his thoughts. Claire answered, a fellow performer, a friend from high school who was also looking to share his art. Sam's heart raced, not from excitement this time, but from the potential of confrontation. He could hear their laughter filtering through the doorway, merging into a collage of comforting chaos that enveloped him. With every passing second, the significance of that night drew closer, demanding that he confront not just his fears, but also the impulse to hide away. As the laughter faded into a muffled hum within the walls of his mind, a new wave crashed over Sam. He was running out of time. Would he be the catalyst for his own transformation or succumb to shadows lurking within? Tomorrow evening awaited him with bright lights and expectant faces, but would he courageously step forward or discover that fear still held dominion? The answer seemed to hang just out of reach, mirroring the anticipation that coursed through the air. The night had arrived, and the coffee shop buzzed with anticipation. Sam stood backstage, heart racing, each pulse echoing the weight of his dreams colliding with the reality of being seen. He could hear the soft murmurs of friends and strangers alike, mingling with laughter that felt both welcoming and daunting. With a deep breath, he adjusted his grip on the microphone, feeling its cool surface against his palm. This was his moment, not merely a chance to perform, but an opportunity to unravel the tightly woven threads of insecurity that had long constrained him. No longer was he just Sam the mechanic's kid, he was Sam the artist. The narrative he had fought to redefine brought clarity and purpose. As he stepped into the spotlight, the gentle hum of conversation quieted. Eyes turned toward him, anticipation hanging thick in the air. He could feel the warmth of their gaze, a blend of curiosity and instinctive support. For once, he was not merely terrified, he was ready. He was done drowning in the fear of judgment. "Hey everyone," he began, his voice steady. Thank you for being here tonight. This space is about sharing, about bringing ourselves to light. He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to permeate the room. Recalling Mr. Jenkins's advice, he knew honesty was the bridge to genuine connection. With the audience's full attention, Sam launched into the first song, each note flowing freely, infused with the essence of his journey. He channeled his fears, disappointments, and triumphs, transforming them into a melody that resonated powerfully within him. Through the music, he bared his soul, threading vulnerability into each note like a skilled weaver creating a vibrant tapestry. As he played, something astonishing happened. The initial nerves began to melt away, replaced by an undeniable confidence. The chords echoed against the walls, solid and resolute, each strum reinforcing his growth. He could see Claire, standing at the front, her eyes shimmering with pride, mirroring the support of the audience. This was no longer just about self-acceptance, it was a shared acknowledgement of struggle and resilience. Midway through his performance, he spotted Jack in the crowd. The familiar face brought a swell of memories, both sting and strength. But instead of terror, he felt a surge of empowerment. This was not just about proving himself to Jack, it was about reclaiming his identity. He let the music envelop him, channeling every ounce of emotion toward this performance. As he reached the climax, Sam poured his heart into the final notes. The crowd held its breath, caught between the build-up of sound and the lingering echo of his truth. With one last powerful flourish, silence fell before the audience erupted in enthusiastic applause, the sound washing over him like warm sunlight after a long storm. He stepped back, breathing heavily, but feeling elated. He had shown not only his talent but had also expressed the essence of who he had become. This validation, rooted in authenticity, was a gift he had once thought unattainable. As the applause reverberated in his heart, he understood he had accomplished something significant. He had taken ownership of his narrative. After the performance, people began to approach Sam, expressing gratitude for his courage to share. Each interaction felt like a powerful exchange, a testament to how far he had come. "You changed my view on fear," one guest said. Another described how his story had sparked inspiration in their own life. Recognition blossomed not just for his music, but for the person he had become. Standing amidst the chatter and excitement, Sam spotted Jack making his way toward him. His heart quickened, but this time it wasn't fear that gripped him, it was curiosity. How would Jack respond? Would humility be present? Jack approached with an earnest expression. "Sam, that was incredible. I never knew you had that in you." Sam held Jack's gaze steady. "Thanks, Jack. It took a lot to get here, but it's just the beginning for me." He felt a swell of pride rise within him, not just for the performance, but for who he had become. At that moment, he realized that the expectations of others no longer held dominion over him. He had validated himself. Walking away from that night, Sam felt the shadows of self-doubt dissipate, leaving behind a solid sense of identity. In the days that followed, he opened opportunities to collaborate with others wishing to share their stories, organizing more open mic nights and creating a community of encouragement. He transformed vulnerability not into a weakness, but into a collective power that built connections. For the first time, Sam explored not just what he could achieve artistically but also the ways he could uplift others along the journey. He embraced the complexity of relationships, the challenges of performance, and the beauty of self-discovery. He had proved to the world and, more importantly, to himself, that transformation was indeed possible. As he reflected on his journey, he found unwavering confidence underpinning his vision. This was only the start. He had ventured through fear, claimed his voice, and forged his path. There was no turning back. He had finally arrived at a place of self-acceptance, empowered and ready to embrace whatever challenge lay ahead. Now was the time for you to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and embark on their journeys of self-discovery.